Imagine standing on a desert hill, the sun scorching your skin, the wind whispering secrets of ancient times. Suddenly, a bush bursts into flames, but it doesn't burn. A voice, powerful, divine, calls your name. Would you answer? This is where our story begins, with a man named Moses, a fugitive turned shepherd, who's about to face the greatest challenge of his life. His journey will shake empires, free a nation, and prove that even the most unlikely heroes can change history. Are you ready to walk with him? The desert was Moses' hiding place. For years he'd been running, from his past, from the life he left behind in Egypt. Once a prince, now a shepherd, he wandered the sands of Midian, tending sheep under a relentless sun. But God had other plans. One day, as Moses led his flock across the rugged terrain of Mount Horeb, he saw something extraordinary. A bush engulfed in flames, yet untouched by destruction. His heart raced. Was this a trick of the desert heat, or something more? As he stepped closer, a voice thundered, "Moses! Moses!" His knees buckled. "Here I am," he stammered, his voice barely a whisper. The voice commanded, "Do not come closer. Remove your sandals, for you stand on holy ground." Moses obeyed, his hands trembling as he slipped off his sandals. The ground beneath him felt alive, charged with a presence he couldn't comprehend. "I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob," the voice declared. Moses hid his face, overwhelmed by awe and fear. Why him? Why now? God's words came like a tidal wave. "I have seen the suffering of my people in Egypt. Their cries have reached me. I know their pain. I have come to deliver them from slavery and lead them to a land flowing with milk and honey." Moses' mind spun. The Israelites, his people, were enslaved, crushed under Pharaoh's heel. But what could he do? He was no leader, no hero, just a man with a past he'd rather forget. Yet God's command was clear. "Rise, Moses. I have chosen you to go to Pharaoh and bring my people out of Egypt. What would you do if destiny called you to face a king?" Moses hesitated, his heart heavy with doubt. "Who am I to go to Pharaoh?" he asked, his voice cracking. "I'm nobody." But God's response was unwavering. "I will be with you." Still, Moses wavered. "If I tell the Israelites that their God sent me, they'll ask for your name. What do I say?" The divine voice answered, "I am who I am. Tell them, I am has sent you." Those words carried weight, a promise of power and presence that Moses could barely grasp. The desert sun beat down, but Moses' heart felt colder than ever. He clutched his staff, his only companion in this wilderness. God's voice pressed on, relentless. "What's in your hand?" Moses glanced at his staff, worn from years of guiding sheep. "It's just my staff," he said. "Throw it to the ground," God commanded. Moses obeyed, and in an instant the staff writhed and transformed into a serpent. He stumbled back, heart pounding. "Reach out and grab it by the tail," God said. With trembling hands, Moses obeyed, and the snake became a staff again, a sign, a miracle, proof of God's power. But Moses wasn't convinced. "Lord, I'm slow of speech," he pleaded. "My tongue stumbles. How will Pharaoh listen to me?" God's response was firm. "Who made your mouth? Who makes the mute, the deaf, the seeing, or the blind? Is it not I, the Lord? I will be your mouth and give you the words to speak." Still, fear gripped Moses. "Please, Lord, send someone else," he begged. But God's patience held. "I will go with you," he promised, and Moses, with a heavy heart, surrendered. "I will go," he whispered. "Have you ever felt unworthy of a calling?" Moses did. Yet, with God's promise echoing in his soul, he turned his steps toward Egypt, the land of his past, the place of his shame. The journey ahead would test his faith, his courage, and his very identity. But he wasn't alone. Egypt loomed like a shadow over Moses' heart. The Nile's waters glistened under the sun, but beneath its beauty lay the suffering of his people. As he approached the city, memories flooded back, palaces, power, and the mistake that drove him into exile. "What if they remember me?" he thought, his stomach churning. "What if they hate me?" But God's voice steadied him. "I am with you every step of the way." Moses stood before Pharaoh, the most powerful man in the world, his heart pounding like a drum. The throne room was vast, lined with golden statues and guarded by stern soldiers. Pharaoh's eyes gleamed with arrogance. "Who are you to come before me?" he demanded. Moses took a deep breath, clutching his staff. "I am not here on my own," he said, his voice steadier than he expected. "The God of Israel has sent me. Let his people go." Pharaoh laughed, a cold, mocking sound that echoed through the hall. "The God of the slaves? I see no evidence this God even exists. Could you stand firm when the world laughs at your faith?" Moses didn't flinch. He raised his staff, and the air crackled with divine power. The staff hit the ground and it became a serpent, slithering toward Pharaoh's throne. The court gasped, but Pharaoh's magicians smirked. With a wave of their hands, they conjured their own snakes. Yet, in a moment that silenced the room, Moses' serpent devoured theirs. A sign, a warning. But Pharaoh's heart was stone. "Do you threaten me with signs?" Pharaoh sneered. "Tell your God that Egypt does not bow." Moses' eyes burned with resolve. "We will see," he said, turning to leave. The battle had begun, not just for the freedom of a people, but for the soul of a nation. What happens when a man of faith faces a king who knows no fear? The days that followed were a whirlwind of miracles and defiance. Moses returned again and again, each time with a new sign from God. The Nile turned to blood, frogs swarmed the land, and plagues descended like a storm. Each time, Pharaoh's heart hardened, his pride refusing to bend. The Israelites too wavered. Some doubted Moses, others clung to hope. Have you ever stood between doubt and destiny, unsure if you could carry on? Moses felt that weight, but God's promise held him steady. In the quiet moments, Moses wrestled with his fears. He was no longer just a shepherd or a fugitive. He was God's messenger, carrying the weight of a nation's freedom. The plagues grew fiercer, the stakes higher. Yet through every trial, God's presence was undeniable. The burning bush, the staff-turned serpent, the voice that called him by name, these were not just signs but reminders that he was never alone. This story isn't just about Moses. It's about all of us. It's about the moments when we're called to step into the unknown, to face our fears, to trust in something greater than ourselves. Moses wasn't perfect. He doubted, he stumbled, he begged God to choose someone else. But he went. He stood before a king, spoke for a nation, and carried a promise that changed history. What's your burning bush? What's calling you to rise? As Moses walked away from Pharaoh's court, the desert wind at his back, he knew the road ahead would be long. But he also knew he wasn't walking alone. The God who called him, who named himself I Am, was with him, and that was enough. This is the story of Moses, a man who ran from his past only to find his purpose, a man who faced a king, defied an empire, and led his people toward freedom. It's a story of faith, courage, and the power of answering when God calls your name. Will you answer when your time comes?